Hey guys, very excited to be able to do this again. The next 3 weeks, we'll be spending a considerable amount of time in Genesis chapters 1 to 3. I'm very, very excited. Again, I can't go into detail with a bunch of things, but my goal is to share the big thought behind each circle, provide at least one piece of evidence that the realm, that this reality it exists, and then how accepting this reality could change this for us and for our culture. So let's review where we were and then cover circle number 3. So if I were to pull back here, we have circle number 1, which I call in love. This is the covenant of redemption, the pretemporal intertrinitarian agreement or contract for human beings to be created and then for them to be redeemed by the predestination of the Father, the salvific work of the Son, and by the power of the Holy Spirit. And this was done in love. And then you have the unseen realm, the invisible realm, and this unseen realm is a realm that Jesus creates, and we have at the very top of the seraphim and the cherubim, and then we have angels. I don't know if I mentioned this last week. A great aside is that the devil is actually a cherub before he fell. He was actually a cherubim, which again can't discuss a bunch of things, but something to talk about if I ever meet you guys. And then you have visible reality. This is circle number 3. And again, Colossians says that Jesus has made both the visible and the invisible. Here we're talking about the visible realm. Now, when we're talking about material reality, we're talking about everything that we can see. We're talking about the stars, we're talking about the planets, and we're talking about this wonderful earth that God has for us. Now, I created this chart years ago now to explain what's happening in Genesis chapter 1. You get to Genesis chapter 1 and it's the 6 creation days, and it ends unfortunately in a bad place. It should end in chapter 2 verse 3. Chapter 1 should end in chapter 2 verse 3, but the editorial people who touched the Bible millennia ago didn't do the best job. So we are where we are. Nonetheless, this is a very, very popular account. It's an interest of people, secular and religious. This is Genesis chapter 1. And in Genesis chapter 1, what do we find? Well, we find this, as far as Genesis is concerned, a history. It begins, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Okay, this is the title line, that he did it. He created the heavens and the earth. And then you have this gap of time, which we can discuss sometime. But at some point in time, after the heavens and the earth were created, God made planet Earth. It says without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. The deep here just means the waters. Let me do that in something that will last. The deep here just means the waters. There we go. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Yes, there you go. And then it goes into the 6 creation days. And I'm not going to read this extent. We're just going to plow through it together. You have day 1. You have light, right? And then you have on the second day, what do you have here? You have God creates an expanse in the midst of the waters. We call this sky. Day 3, God makes land. Day 4, God makes luminaries, sun, moon, and stars. Day 5, God makes, let's do this. There you go. Day 5, God makes avian and aquatic animals. So you're thinking birds and fishies. And then on day 6, this is a long one. 6th day, God makes land animals and humans. Okay. Now, Genesis 1 gets a lot of flack both inside the church and outside the church, unfortunately. Nonetheless, though, I'm a big believer that the more you look into Genesis 1 and you study it, particularly even the first 11 chapters of the Bible, you will find gold. Gold that will unlock the rest of the scriptures for you, and it'll help you ask better questions. So here is a question that we could ask that I think unlocks Genesis 1 a little bit. There's far more to say. Next week, I plan to share some things that absolutely blew my mind that I've discovered about Genesis 1. But for now, here is the opening question. It says, God wanted to make a world that humans could thrive in. Okay, the problem was that this world was formless and empty. That's what it says in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. It says the earth was formless and empty. In Hebrew, tohu bohu. And the question is, how did God solve it? How did God go from a formless and empty world to a world that had form and was filled? Well, here's what he did. If you break it down like this, it's really quite beautiful. Remember day 1, God makes light. Let me use a pen here. God makes light, and then what does he do with that light? He puts it inside of the luminaries. There we go. On day 2, what does God make? God makes the sky that splits the water above and the water below. And what does he do with that split sky? He puts avian, birds, and aquatic animals, fishies, right? And then on day 3, God makes land. And then on day 6, God makes land animals. There we go. And humans. So you see God in Genesis chapter 1 is solving a problem. He is not only forming the world, giving it light, sky, and land. He is then filling everything that he forms. He gives the light to the luminaries. He fills the sky with animals, and he fills the land with beings. It's really quite incredible stuff. What I've often tried to help people understand about Genesis 1, and something that I'm eager for you guys to see when you're thinking about Genesis 1, is the following. When Genesis 1 opens, it is Moses speaking to Israelites who have now made it out of bondage in Israel, but now need a new culture. They need to understand this God, Yahweh, that has delivered them, who now owns them. They were once owned by Pharaoh, but now they belong to God, and God has to mold this people into shape. What shape he has to mold them into, we can discuss at a later point. But Deuteronomy chapter 4, I think verse 19 or 20 puts it very beautifully. It says, but he, being God the Father, has taken you and brought you out of the iron furnace, out of Egypt, to be a people of his own inheritance. What do you put in an iron furnace? Well, you put iron. Why do you put it in an iron furnace? You put iron in an iron furnace so you can mold it. So again, Deuteronomy 4:20. But he has taken you and brought you out of the iron furnace, out of Egypt, to be a people for his own inheritance, as it is this day. God has taken these people out of Egypt to be his people, and to shape them for a purpose. What's the big purpose? To reveal Jesus the Savior to the world. Now, these people need a culture. They need an understanding. So Moses reveals to them the creation of the world. Now the question becomes, is this God Yahweh a friend? Is he just somebody who's powerful and has delivered us only to bring us into another cruel bondage? But the answer of Genesis 1 is quite amazing. What are the 3 qualities you want in a friend? Right? You want the friend to be incredibly powerful. Well, God is incredibly powerful in Genesis chapter 1. He says, let there be, and things just come into existence. So we got that one. But you don't just want a friend who's incredibly powerful. The next question is this: is this friend intelligent? Because power without intelligence can be deeply troubling. But we find that he's incredibly intelligent. I mean, again, look at this chart. How many times have you read Genesis 1 and walked away wondering questions about evolution and missed this very clear design that he lays forth? He's extremely intelligent. This world is incredibly fine-tuned, something we'll discuss a little bit later. But then the last thing is this: you don't just want a friend that's very powerful, and you don't just want a friend that's very intelligent. You want to know that that friend loves you. If you have someone in your life who's incredibly powerful and incredibly intelligent, but they do not love you, that could be a cause for incredible concern. In fact, it is a cause for incredible concern. What you need is love. And what you find is that God makes this entire world not for his benefit, for he has all things, but he makes it for our benefit. That's the incredible thing, that the world is a gift to us. So, every time we meet, I try to answer 2 questions, and I'm now expanding it to 3. So the 3 questions go as follows. It is, what is the evidence? Sorry, let me just move this a little bit. Oh, there you go. What is the evidence? Sorry, make it a little smaller. What is the evidence what evidence is there? Let me read. What evidence is there that the earth is God's gift to mankind? Okay, number one. Number two, how could this teaching impact us practically? And then number three, how does this connect to the covenant of redemption? Let's take this first question here. What evidence is there that the earth is God's gift to mankind? See, the question isn't whether or not this reality exists. There's no debate that the material reality exists. The question is, what is the nature of it? Again, the question, what evidence is there that the earth is God's gift to mankind? I'll answer this question. It says, what evidence is there? It's called fine-tuning. In physics, there's the second law of thermodynamics. It's called the law of entropy. And the law of entropy essentially states that things that are left to their own and are already disordered will not become ordered on their own. They will only melt. If they move at all, they will move into further chaos, right? And if you think about this world that is formless and void, this world that is empty, secular scientists would agree that at one point in time there had to essentially be nothing and some chaos. And what are the odds that you go from incredible chaos to this incredible order? The chances, last I checked, were 1 out of 10 to the power of 123. And the chances that we human beings would be formed, that you and I would be in this world, is 1 out of 10 to the power of, I think, 2,685,000. I mean, it's practically impossible that this world exists the way that it exists. And not just that it exists, but it exists in such a way that is so excellent for us. I mean, the world, our globe sits on an axis of 23.5 degrees, that if it were off by just a couple degrees, everything in this life would change as we know it. Now, some people say this objection, which I cannot stand. The objection goes something like this. Oh, David, you're being silly. You're saying that, oh, look, there's evidence that this reality is a gift from God and not just a matter of macro evolution, Big Bang, a big happy accident. But you're thinking about it backwards. The reason why you thrive in this world is because you, as a human being, as a homo sapien, won the battle of the survival of the fittest. The issue, guys, with this argument is it doesn't take into account the very real reality that this world isn't just interested in our subsistence. I'll say this again. This world, guys, is not merely good for us to just exist. This world is excellent for our pleasure. My favorite example of this, and this is partial, shows you the things that I love in this world. I give you something I love dearly. Juice. Okay? Juice. Can we talk about juice for a second? See, there's nothing that demands that we drink juice. We just need water in order to survive. But my goodness, we live on a planet where not only fruit trees produce wonderful liquid that tastes so great, you can mix some of these things together and they taste even better. Meaning this world, that's an indicator. Juice is an indicator that this world is not merely a matter of getting to our subsistence, survival of the fittest, but pleasure. And it accords perfectly with the Bible. You think about Psalm 16 says at the very end, Psalm 16:11, part B and C, it says, in your presence there is fullness of joy, at your right hand there are pleasures forevermore. Again, what's the answer here? What evidence is there that earth is God's gift to mankind? The incredible fine-tuning of the world, and also the fact that this world is designed not just for our existence, but for our pleasure. The next thing is a practical question. How could this teaching that the world is God's gift to us practically change our lives and hopefully our culture? I give 2 quick points as I'm running out of time. Number 1 is gratitude. This world, like I said, is a pleasurable one. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand pleasures forevermore. And so if you think about it, we as Christians should exhibit incredible gratitude for this world. Go out, touch some grass, enjoy Jesus. Okay, there's a book by a man named Randy Alcorn called "Does God Really Want Us to Be Happy?" It's a small little book. I highly recommend it, and it takes pains to show us like, Christians are supposed to be incredibly happy people. One ancient writer says that a Christian is a man who has a song in his heart. But the second point of application for us is not just gratitude, but also good stewardship. Okay. Since this world is God's gift to us, the question is, how should we treat this gift? Unfortunately, there are way too many Christians who use some terrible logic that they don't even apply to natural gifts. Like, for example, they say things like, well, since we know that this world is going to be destroyed by fire, and since God has made us vice regents or lords over this world, therefore we can do whatever we want with this world anyway. That's terrible logic. If I gift my daughter, she's currently 3, but by the grace of God, she'll be old enough one day I can give her a car. If I give her a car, and I find that she's treating this car any which way she wants to, and upon my asking her, baby girl, why are you treating this gift so terribly? She says the following things to me. Well, Dad, at some point in time, this car is going to end up in a trash heap anyway. Not only that, you gave it to me, so I should be able to use it however I want. I'd be offended. It wouldn't be an ego trip to say to my daughter, baby girl, this is foolish thinking. I gave you the gift, and the way that you take care of this gift is a reflection of how you value the gift. Not only that, yes, at some point in time, this car as a perishable good will have to be thrown to some trash heap or possibly recycled, but that doesn't mean that you don't value it today. One of my favorite passages that get at this is a passage that you think wouldn't be in the Bible, but it is. But we don't read the Old Testament carefully enough. Listen to this passage. This is in Deuteronomy. Moses is speaking to the people of Israel about how they should conduct themselves when they are besieging the Canaanite civilizations. It says the following: when you besiege a city for a long time, making war. So this is in the context of war against it. Again, war when your adrenaline is pumping and you're just, violent, right? Not exactly the time to be reasoning through things. Listen to what he says. You shall not destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them. He says, you may eat from them, go ahead, because that's what they're for, but you shall not cut them down. Then he asks this rhetorical question: are the trees in the field human that they should be besieged by you? I think the KJV, I like their translation. The KJV says something like, are you at war with the trees? Like, what is wrong with you? It continues, only the trees that you know are not trees for food you may destroy and cut down, that you may build siege works against the city and make war with you until it falls. Meaning, treat this tree according to its purpose, have a good purpose for it, have a Christ exalting purpose for it. Don't treat it like it's beneath you. Honor it for what it is. The very last thing I could mention, or that I should mention, is a question that I brought up before, which was, how does this all connect with the covenant of redemption, this pretemporal intertrinitarian agreement to create and redeem mankind? Here's what I want you guys to I'll tease out for a second. God had not only thought of creating us, but he thought of creating a world. That we are not disembodied spirits floating. No, we have bodies as far as Jesus is concerned. He saw us with bodies smiling, right? And not only did he see us with bodies smiling from eternity past, he also saw us situated in a world, on farms, walking up mountains, swimming in the ocean. And so it shouldn't surprise us at all that when you read in the book of Revelation, God creating a new reality, it says he creates a new heaven and a new earth. That God doesn't want mankind to be without an earth. Earth is our home. And when we say heaven is our home, I hope what we're saying as Christians that we're just merely saying the new heaven and new earth, not us floating around as disembodied people in the sky in bright light. That may be where we are going temporarily if we pass on before Jesus Christ comes back. But when Jesus Christ comes back, you will get a body and return to a new earth. God bless you guys. Thank you for doing this with me. It's a blessing. Peace.